Hello and welcome to Top TV. My name is Jordan, and we are discussing Severance Season 2. This week might be a little bit of a shorter recap here as we are talking about Episode 8, Sweet Vitriol, written by Adam Countee and Casey Perry, directed by Ben Stiller, and original released on March 7th, 2025. And the original synopsis is Discoveries Are Made. We try to enjoy each episode equally here, though for a while this episode I was wondering what discovery would be made as the time ticked down, but it was all worth it when, to me anyway, when we got the reveal that Harmony Cobel was the creator of Severance. Not only does it change the way that we see Harmony and Lumen going forward, but it can kind of recontextualize things from the past. So I have some stuff here in my notes of events from, the first season and earlier this season that I wouldn't say really points to it, but like there's always been more to Harmony than what we've seen, and this kind of when maybe it seemed like she was a crazed person who was trying to get Lumen's approval, we now see is more of a dedicated like mother to the idea of severance. And now we kind of see even more of how Lumen has screwed her over and how maybe the last straw was her getting fired and not really being welcomed back after even stopping the OTC. So, this episode has been, I would say, the most divisive episode I've seen of Severance. I've seen people that really love it. I've seen people that really hate it. And I would say I probably fall somewhere in the middle. Like I mentioned in the intro, I was kind of like, not like looking at the clock, but there'd be times where, it is a shorter episode, 37 minutes. And, when they're going through this stuff and you're like, man, it says discoveries are going to be made. We haven't gotten any discoveries. And like I'd pause it. Sometimes not even to like check the time, but like also I have like a newborn at home. I have dogs at home, so like stuff going on where I'm like I have to pause a lot or put subtitles on, stuff like that. And because maybe a hot take, I am not somebody that watches with subtitles TV like at all. I my eyes get drawn to the subtitles instead of the actual show that's going on. So the only time I usually use subtitles if I'm watching some sort of like foreign show like Dark, where I listen to the German but I read the English subtitles, not the dub. But anyway, so I'm like checking. I'm like, this says there's only like 15 minutes left. What is, and it's, I would say fairly slow episode. I don't use that in like a bad way. Like I've seen some people use the term slow episode, but like a very character building episode where we're getting a lot of Harmony's background, as well as the background of this town, Salt's Neck, which is a former Lumen town. This is a town where Lumen ran it. Like they had the ether factory, and they had, you see a bunch of Lumen throughout Salt's Neck. And they've left this place completely decimated. It makes you wonder, like obviously I don't think that's going to happen to Kier because it's named after Kier, and also it's like their headquarters, it seems, right? But just shows what they've been doing to people and why there are people outside of our main crew here who are anti-Lumen. Like we're going to meet Hampton, a former co-worker or colleague or chum, depending on who you're asking, I guess, of Harmony Cobel, who worked at the plant with her as a child. So we got introduced to Miss Huang earlier this season, and it was kind of our first experience with child workers here in Severance. And it seems like this is a thing. They even mentioned the winter tide material, right? Like Milchick brings it up to Miss Huang a couple weeks ago, and in this, she Harmony Cobel was Wintertide material and had like a little bust of her head and seemed to be next to James Egan back when he was younger, being presented with this and stuff. And you know, her aunt, Sissy, is going to say that, you know, she was, you know, stuff like top of her class. She was doing really well. They saw Kier in you, and then what a disappointment you've turned out to be. And that's when, you know, Cobel is there the whole time to get this notepad, which reveals that she actually came up with Severance, the OTC, the Glasgow block, every part of Severance, pretty much, it seems. She has come up with. And they had told her, right, when they, I guess, stole it from her, that to seek out some sort of credit for this would have been like not the Kier way. It would have been, you know, Kier's knowledge is for all. You would be very what is the word I'm thinking of here? Like very selfish to hold on to this and want the credit, right? It's going to benefit everybody. You know, don't say anything. And I think part of the reason why they probably give her the severed floor and what seems to be like their headquarters. You know, this is where the board is. We've seen Helena here. We've seen Cobel here, and it's named Kier, the town. So I would assume this is their headquarters. It's in their, you know, video and stuff too. So they give Harmony Cobel the severed floor to run on at the headquarters. So I feel like this is kind of one of those things where it's like, hey, you run this floor here, don't say anything. You can be close to your baby of Severance, but don't interfere. Don't say it's you that did it, type of thing. So I don't know how long, you know, Cobel has been manager of the severed floor. I don't know if we know if she's done it the whole time. You know, a couple weeks ago, they said Irv and Bert, when they were talking at dinner, the Severance was only like 12 years ago, right? But, you know, Fields had said Bert's been working there for 20. So, you know, was he initial test subject, Bert, before it went real public? Or is it, you know, but then the whole sermon thing doesn't line up. So that might just be their cover story. But anyway, you know, this was, you know, most of the episode here is a lot of talking about ether huffing, right? When we talk about Hampton. And I would say the one thing that did frustrate me about the episode as we were going is not so much that we weren't seeing the main cast. I can take episodes like this where we are into the wild, like last week. Last week we got answers too. Like we got an answer this week, but when I see people saying that these two episodes are filler episodes or, you know, bottle episodes, that's not really what like a bottle episode is, but it's kind of frustrating because the plot can move forward without our main cast. Like, and also you can have this is kind of what I miss about TV at times as well in today's culture, is the character episodes. Like I said, some people call these like filler, but like this one definitely is not filler. We learn a lot of information, not just about Harmony creating Severance, but about what Lumen does to these other towns and you know, some of these other things. But like TV shows used to have these a lot. Like what I always talk about, like Lost, right? You'd get your Jack episode, you'd get your Hurley episode. A new character's introduced. Eventually, you're getting a flashback episode of them, and you're able to figure out their, you know, where they come from, what their stuff is like. So that was kind of the so there's been some, I guess, pun intended here, vitriol towards this episode. And I think maybe it would have been lessened a bit if last week's and this week's were spread out a bit. Like maybe this episode came a little earlier in the season. And you don't have like Devin calling her. And then, because then, this could take place anytime after she bolted after episode 4 or episode 3. And then you have some episodes with the innies and the outies, and then you kind of go to the gem episode. Then you hit like 8, 9, 10, or 9, 10 as the finale, like we're going to get here. But I think that is something that getting these 2 episodes back to back, while we get a lot of answers, we have not seen much progress on the Mark, Irv, Dylan, a lot of the characters that we already love in the back half here. So, but I do think like 8, 9, and I mean not 8. This was 8, 9, and 10 are going to be pretty stacked, I think, and they're both, I think, very long episodes. I think one is like, I think it shows how long next week's is, but I've heard rumors that the finale is like 70 minutes. So, that's longer than the finale from last season for sure, which was 39 minutes. So it says 44 minutes for the next episode. And then I've heard rumors from people that have seen the full season. It's like 70 minutes, but I don't know if that's verified or not, but that would be good. So we have some, okay, so let's talk about what this thing may recontextualize here from the past. So before, Cobel was very interested by PD's reintegration. It was always wondering, trying to get proof of it. So since she created the whole procedure, we now know that instead of just being an above and beyond employee trying to show her worth by getting the chip from PD at the funeral, we now know this was her baby. She may know it better than anyone. And when she's trying to tell the board he showed signs of reintegration, and they brush her off by saying they do not recognize reintegration, that'd be very frustrating to create the thing that you're working with and then not like create the thing that you're working on, give it to somebody, or they steal it from you, and then you realize signs of things that are going wrong and you're telling them to try to get in front of them, and they say, we don't recognize that. Well, it shows that she knows this tech better than anybody else still. And this shows that actually calling Cobel after Ragabi leaves is the best person you can call. Now, of course, Devin and Mark don't know that, right? They don't know that. They're calling her because they have nowhere else to turn. I've also seen a little bit of complaints on why Devin would call Cobel. I think I talked about it last week, but to me, it makes tons of sense. You have Ragabi, who's not giving you any answers at all. She is, like, I'm out of here if you call her, and doesn't even answer questions really about the reintegration for Mark or her. They're just kind of like, she hasn't given them any information whatsoever except for reintegration's the way to go. I'm going to flood the chip. That's really all that we've seen her provide them. Mark has to ask stuff to really get like it out of her. Like, is my wife alive? She eventually says yes. Last season, she could have told him that then too, but she didn't. She waits until now when he is at his lowest, trying to find a way to get a message through that she knows that this is going to land for him. So she's playing by her own game. We don't know Ragabi's full end goal here. I think she is on their side, obviously, but I think it's like she wants to be the one to crack reintegration, and she doesn't care kind of how many people she goes through. The next test subject is out there for her, So Devin has nobody else that she knows. Miss Selvig did get close to Devin as Miss Selvig, not as Cobel. And she liked Miss Selvig, and they were spending time together, laughing together. We don't know how much of that was real Mrs. Cobel, like in the sense of her personality or, how much she's playing it up or stuff like that. But it seemed like she was playing it up. But with that, there is some, even when you find out this woman may have been crazy, that's the thing, right? crazy. That's how Lumen is kind of painting her. Oh, she's trying to get close to you and your family and all that kind of stuff. There's still those memories that I think Devin is falling back on of she was nice to me. She did this stuff to me. And anybody bringing up that she stole her baby, she didn't actually never stole her baby. She put the baby safely in her car seat and away when she took off instead of taking the baby. We're led to believe she took the baby until they find her. So obviously that is not like a big sticking point. Plus, like Devin said before, with the cabins, which is their next plan, going to the cabin and see if they can talk to any Mark or whatever, right? It is can like it is who else would be able to help us either turn it on or see how that works than somebody that worked on the separate floor. So for them, I think it all tracks. I really do. I don't have a problem with them calling Cobel at all. And now we know Mark's blessing on it at least, right? Maybe we'll see a little bit of that side of things next week, or maybe they're just skipping that part. But he's up when she calls and he's like able to talk like, hey, I'm right here. This is Mark. And, she's like, tell me everything. So, I think it totally makes sense for them. And I think that's going to be fun to see them team up together. So this also kind of includes to why was she so interested in Mark and Gemma? Why was she trying to really like test it with the candle and putting them in the same room, Mark and Gemma? And why did she want to live next door? Before that seems crazy, like a stalker. We now know, maybe it's still a little crazy, right? Cobel is a little crazy. But now we also know that this was the person that created the chip. She knows they have Gemma downstairs, right? Mark is important to the company. So why not live next door to him and see how he is handling being severed? Is he having any doubts about being severed? You can get close to him and he can talk to you like a friend. Like he was, talking to her at the party, not knowing still that she is on the severed floor in the finale or the episode before the finale. And with that, they're bonding and she's like, yeah, get out of Lumen, and he's bonding with her over his job and saying stuff like, oh, I might be, quitting. That's some way that you talk to somebody that is an acquaintance or somebody that you trust. So at that point, she's realizing as well, I think, too, that, hey, he doesn't realize I am. So it's another way of testing the chip with her being next to him. It's just like when he has Gemma right in front of him as Miss Casey and he doesn't recognize her. She is somebody he sees every day as his boss, and sometimes she's being cruel to him, but he's still nice to her. He is still, doesn't recognize her. So it's another way for her to test the chip kind of off the clock. And with it being her baby, it makes more sense why she would be more invested in figuring out if the chip works, why she wants to keep testing. We don't really know why yet on the end of when she is looking at Mark and Gemma as Miss Casey in the wellness room. And she seems a little bummed they're not recognizing each other. And he says, Milchick's like, hey, it's good. It means the chip works. Why does she not want the chip work? Or is she regretting this at the time where she does want it to fail, where she does want to say, hey, I can prove reintegration and I can prove my worth to this company again by bringing something to light that's like, hey, there's a fault in this. We need to fix this. I'm the one that caught it type of thing. We also know why she took total offense to not running the severed floor, this new promotion that they were going to give her to kind of get her out of the way. She sees it for what it is because she's kind of been cast out away. And you even hear in the episode where she takes off in episode 3, when she's talking to Helena, Helena says, I think you like overrated your contributions. Now, of course, we don't know if Helena knows who actually created Severance. She might still think her dad did. She says that to Mark at the diner that they go to, the restaurant. But also, that's the cover story anyway. So, of course, that's what she would tell an employee. But if she doesn't know, then you can also see why this would get Cobel a little like upset. But if she really does know who made it, then that would really piss Cobel off as well. So it also explains why she might have feared for her life a bit more when she was going to talk to the board, because she has this over them. She may have overplayed her hand with it and now is worried that they might just bump her off to not have to worry about this getting exposed. So before she goes to talk to the board, I think, it may not even be that she's fearful for her life. It may have been, though they kind of mention that in like behind the scenes stuff, but it may have also, if you want to read it a different way, it could be that, okay, I'm going to go talk to the board, but wait, I don't actually have the proof with me right now. So they could probably kill me and get rid of it or whatever. But like, let me go get the proof from Sissy's house, from my mom's house. And then I can come back and maybe leverage this a different way. And I think that is something we still have to watch out for Cobel. She is going to team up with Mark and Devin, I think. We have to watch for ulterior motives here to see if she is able to spin this into getting back her job on the severed floor. We know Milchek did not get a good review, so this could open up a path for Cobel to come back in and sweep her old job back from Milchek. But the worry here for Mark and Devin, because they don't know this, let's see how much she gives them too. She has all these documentations, the sketches and stuff. She might be able to crack the reintegration a lot better. But when we're talking about Cobel's ulterior motives, her final goal, is it to bring down Lumen? I can see how it could be because they've really pissed her off. They've cast her aside. But with Severance being her baby, it might be a way for her to kind of say, look, you can keep saying Jay made it. Just get me back on the severed floor so I can be close to my baby, right? That is something we have to watch out for, I think, for the next two episodes, is Cobel's ulterior motives. Does Ragabi know that Cobel was the creator or not? I'm not sure on that. Was she an apprentice to her? That's a theory I've seen on why she would automatically think Ragabi is the one doing this. But also, I think we have to kind of take what the show has presented us up front as well. Ragabi mentions in season 1, the episode she kills Grainer, she mentions that she put the chip in Mark. So obviously, she has some sort of background with Severance and the chip. We now know when we watch season 1 and we get episode 2 that she is not the one who put the chip in Helena. So at some point she leaves the company and she has this knowledge. So I'm assuming maybe they fired her. She has some sort of vendetta against Cobel or Severance. And she, Cobel is worried that Ragabi is the one doing this. Because even in season 1, when they're talking about PD being reintegrated, she says Ragabi must have done this. Ragabi. So there is some precedent here and maybe some background we're not aware of yet. Between these two characters. Okay. But yeah, so this gives more motive for Cobel to turn on Lumen. Like I said, they stole the Severance tech. They fired her. When they rehired her, they didn't want her to run the severed floor. So we're going to see how it all shakes out for Cobel from there. I don't know if we're ever going to see Sissy and Hampton again, but Hampton's line of like, tame these tempers, assholes, was really great as the card's approaching him. We learned that, like I said before, Cobel was a child 8 and 9 or 10 years old doing these vats, running these vats with Hampton on a factory, child labor as he calls it. And we still see this as a thing throughout Lumen here, with Miss Huang being an employee of the Severed Floor. How many children do they employ throughout their 206 countries that they operate in? That's a question that I have for the show. We may never find that out, but it does seem like it's some sort of like internship, especially when they get to the school part, like some sort of internship where they're also working. So who really knows with that? But Miss Huang, it may not be as barbaric as it was when Cobel worked in the factory, especially now that it doesn't seem like they do the ether stuff anymore, right? Like, I don't know if they still make that. They're more like, I'd say, tech-based at this point, and they have other stuff that they make too throughout the company. So I'm sure they still have factories. I don't know if they still employ child like that. Maybe it's more of like the internship that Miss Huang has. Who knows? But it does seem it helped as well when we've been wondering this whole time, and the character's been wondering, why is there a child working here? This is precedent. There's precedent for this throughout Lumen now that we got Cobel's background. So something I really, really enjoyed about the episode. Let's just talk about it again here. So Patricia Arquette was outstanding in this episode. The direction by Ben Stiller was awesome. The place they found to film this in Newfoundland, Canada, was beautiful. This looked great. I love these type of like old town, small town looks to them. This was really cool looking. All the snow, the water, the mountainous terrain as she's driving looked really great. The cinematography by Jessica Lee Gangwei again was outstanding. So a lot of good stuff throughout this episode to chew on, like the scenery and just the beautiful shots. Getting background of a character that we've been kind of wondering about her history, that kind of recontextualizes things from season 1 and earlier this season, I think was needed as well. And I think the stage is really set here for the finale. This episodes 9 and 10. We got a bonus episode this season, so I'm kind of thinking of this one with Cobel as being that bonus one where they're like, hey, we got an extra episode. Let's just throw in Cobel's background here. I think that works. So it's not like we had 9 episodes and we waste an episode. Not even it's wasted, but people have said that, right? That we're wasting an episode here. My opinion, no, but if you had 9 episodes, maybe you'd be able to say a little bit more of like, oh, it's wasted. And then you only have the finale next. Then you'd be like, yeah, this didn't move like I thought it would. But with 2 episodes left, there's a lot that can be done here. And I think it's going to feel like maybe episodes 8 and 9 of last season. Just like, I don't know. Those 2 I feel like are almost like a 2-parter with how episode 8 ends and how episode 9 begins. That I love watching those back to back because it is fun back to back. A full experience. I'm thinking maybe episodes 9 and 10 will feel like that this season. Maybe not. Maybe I'm wrong, but it'll be really cool to watch both of them back to back after the season wraps and kind of binge this whole season afterwards and see how it feels and how it flows as a binge. Because my first watch of Severance was a binge, like the week after the finale dropped. I heard good things, watched it 3 years ago in a binge, loved the show. Patiently waited for season 2. And then when I rewatch it, obviously you're rewatching in a binge too. You're not waiting week to week to rewatch something. So this was my first experience of the week to week with it. I think it's been great to sit here and theorize and do the podcast. We only have 2 more weeks of it. So I'm going to miss doing these. I'm looking for other shows to do this on. I mentioned last week we're going to try starting Hulu's Paradise, see how that show goes. I heard that show sticks to landing. So hopefully it does and everything is working out there. But that'll wrap us up here. Short episode today. Not too much to get into or theorize about, but next week's is called The After Hours. I think we now know who they're referring to when they say Mark and Devin team with an ally. That's Cobel. Helly investigates further. So I'm really curious to see what Helly's investigating. Is she getting like snooping around the severed floor? Is she trying to go down to the testing floor? Does she finally? That's what it probably is. She probably finds the thing. Nobody went and got back and got the instructions to the exports hall yet, right? To the testing floor. So I'm thinking maybe she'll go back. She mentioned going to get it last time we saw her. So I think she'll go get that and maybe try to find this elevator. Maybe she'll end up on the testing floor. And we'll see, is it still Helly when she goes down the testing floor? Does it turn her into Helena? If so, and then also, do we have now an idea if Mark becomes fully reintegrated with Cobel's help? Does he kind of infiltrate the severed floor with all of his knowledge? And it kind of gives, how we mentioned before, maybe the parallel to season 1 finale would be the Glasgow block with Miss Casey. That seems like that might be further down the line now. And maybe this sort of parallel with the season 1 finale would be reintegrated Mark walking through the halls and kind of or Audi Mark. Maybe they're putting the Glasgow block on him as he goes down to get all the information to bring back to them. I don't know. So there's ways that it can kind of parallel where last season we had the innies out in the world, where we have the Audis out in the severed floor and making connections and seeing what they actually do. And even if it's just Mark, and, kind of how Innie Mark was posing at the party, trying to not make anybody aware. You have Audi Mark or reintegrated Mark kind of posing as his Innie self, trying to, not let people on, because we don't really know what happens with reintegration. Obviously, they become a full person, but how much of it is their Innie self and their Audi self? How much can people realize, oh, he's acting different because of that Audi side coming out? So that's the kind of stuff I'm curious about. But so we have those next 2 episodes coming up here. Each week we'll talk about them here on the podcast, and then we'll move on to some other shows. But thank you all for watching and listening. This is at TopTVPod on all of our social medias. You can email us, toptvpod@gmail.com. Have a great rest of your week. We'll catch you next time when we talk the After Hours.